Imagine waking up one morning, and the Persian Gulf is on fire. Oil prices have tripled overnight. American warships are taking damage. And somewhere deep inside the mountains of Iran, missiles are already in the air. This isn't a movie. This is the scenario that keeps Pentagon generals awake at 3 a.m. Because here's the thing. Nobody on television will say out loud, America has never fought a war quite like this one. And if it goes wrong, the consequences wouldn't just affect soldiers on a battlefield. They would reach every kitchen table, every gas pump, every city skyline across the entire world. So tonight, we asked the question the experts fear most. What happens when the Iran war goes wrong? To understand the danger ahead, you have to understand what came before. 1979. The Islamic Revolution shakes the foundations of the Middle East. America loses its closest ally in the region overnight. Iran goes from partner to adversary. For over 40 years, since that moment, the two nations have existed in a state of cold hostility, proxy wars, economic sanctions, assassinations, and near misses that almost became something catastrophic. In 2020, the United States killed Iran's most powerful general, Qasem Soleimani, in a drone strike. Iran launched ballistic missiles at American bases in Iraq within days. The world held its breath. No Americans died, but military analysts reviewing the targeting data later said it was extraordinarily close. That was a warning shot. Here's what nobody asked after the smoke cleared. What happens if the next shot is not a warning? Wars rarely begin with declarations. They begin with incidents. A tanker attacked in the Strait of Hormuz. An American soldier killed by an Iranian-backed militia in Syria. A cyber attack that knocks out a power grid with fingerprints pointing to Tehran. Any one of these events, and there have been all of them in recent years, could become the spark. The United States responds. Iran responds to the response. And suddenly, two nations with decades of hatred, modern weapons, and no direct communication are in open conflict. Now here's where it gets truly dangerous. Iran has spent the last 2 decades preparing specifically for this moment. Not to win a conventional war against America. They know they can't. But to make the cost of that war so astronomically painful that America breaks before they do. That strategy has a name in military circles. They call it the mosaic defense, and it is terrifying in its design. Here is what military war game simulations have repeatedly concluded. Day 1, American airstrikes hit Iranian nuclear and military facilities. Precision, overwhelming, the kind of opening move that looks clean on a screen. But Iran doesn't collapse. Iran disperses. Hezbollah, Iran's most powerful proxy force, activates across Lebanon and Syria simultaneously. Israel comes under rocket fire from multiple directions. The entire region destabilizes within 72 hours. Day 3, Iranian fast attack boats swarm the Strait of Hormuz. This is the moment that changes everything. The Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. And through those 21 miles flows 20% of the world's entire oil supply. Iran doesn't need to sink every ship. They just need to close the strait, mine it, make it too dangerous to transit. Oil markets panic. Within a week, prices surge past $200 a barrel. Global supply chains, still fragile from years of disruption, begin to fracture. Day 7, Iranian cyber units, trained and battle-hardened from years of shadow warfare, launch coordinated attacks on American infrastructure, power grids, financial systems, water treatment facilities. Not hypothetical. These capabilities have already been demonstrated in smaller attacks against Saudi Arabia's Aramco, against American banks, against Israeli systems. Now they deploy everything all at once. Week 2. American casualties mount not from conventional warfare, but from asymmetric, relentless, Everywhere at once pressure that has no front line and no clear target to strike back at the American public, promised a short and surgical operation, begins to see something far darker unfolding on their screens. Vietnam, a war that began with supreme confidence and ended with something America has never fully healed from. 58,000 names carved into black marble in Washington, D.C., Iraq. A war sold uncertainty that turned into 20 years of complexity. Trillions of dollars, thousands of lives. A region more destabilized than before. Afghanistan, a war that lasted longer than any in American history, and ended with the same government it started against back in power. Each time, the opening chapter read the same way. Superior firepower, clear objectives, quick resolution. Each time, reality had other plans. Iran is not Iraq. It is not Afghanistan. Iran has 3 times the population of Iraq. A mountainous terrain, purpose-built for guerrilla warfare. A missile arsenal, numbering in the thousands. Proxies embedded across 7 countries. And a civilian population that, regardless of their feelings about their government, has been conditioned by decades of American sanctions to see this as an existential fight. A senior Pentagon official, speaking anonymously to The Atlantic in 2019, said something that was barely noticed at the time. He said a ground war in Iran would be the most complex military operation in American history. Not the most dangerous, the most complex. Because complexity is what defeats superpowers. Iran has the largest ballistic missile arsenal in the Middle East, estimated at over 3,000 missiles of varying range and accuracy. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, one of the most powerful naval forces ever assembled, was repositioned to the Persian Gulf as a warning to Iran in 2019. And Iranian military commanders publicly stated they had already mapped its operational patterns. In a 2002 United States military war game called Millennium Challenge, which simulated a conflict against a fictional Middle Eastern nation modeled heavily on Iran, the American side lost. A retired Marine general playing the opposing force used unconventional tactics that sank 16 American naval vessels in the simulation. The Pentagon restarted the simulation with new rules. They changed the rules because they didn't like the outcome. Iran's proxy network, Hezbollah, Houthi rebels, and Iraqi militias, gives it the ability to attack American interests simultaneously in Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and the Gulf, not as distraction, as the primary strategy. And perhaps the most unsettling fact of all, there is currently no active functioning diplomatic back channel between Washington and Tehran. When tensions peak, there is no direct phone line, no emergency contact, no room where 2 people can quietly prevent an accident from becoming a catastrophe. In every war scenario, behind every satellite image, every missile trajectory, every strategic calculation, there are people. A 22-year-old from Ohio who joined the Navy to pay for college, now stationed in the Persian Gulf, watching the horizon for fast boats. A mother in Tehran who remembers the last war her country fought, 8 years against Iraq, with chemical weapons, with 1 million dead. And who prays every night that her children don't see another one. A family in Beirut that has already lived through 6 different conflicts, and simply wants 1 year, just one, without the sound of explosions. War is never just a policy decision. It is a weight, distributed unevenly, across people who had no vote in the matter. The generals retire with medals. The mothers count graves. And the question that outlives every conflict. The question etched into the memorials and whispered in the hospitals and written in the letters that never got sent, was it worth it? That question once asked cannot be unasked. And right now, before the spark becomes a flame, it is the only question that matters. History is not inevitable. Wars that seemed certain have been avoided. Crises that looked like the edge of the abyss were stepped back from by one conversation, one decision, one moment of restraint. The Iran war scenario is not a prophecy. It is a warning, and warnings exist for one reason: to be heeded. The darkest scenario only happens if no one does the hardest work. The slow, unglamorous, camera-free work of diplomacy, restraint, and the radical courage it takes to not pull a trigger. We've been to the edge before. The question is, do we understand, this time, just how far the fall is? The most dangerous moment in any conflict is the one just before it begins. If this made you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe, because the stories that matter most are the ones they hope you never ask about.